Shifting focus for now, Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370's disappearance remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries.
Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappearing a decade ago. That plane carrying 239 people vanished from radars less than an hour.
Elon Musk stepping into the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 electrified the world because it combined two powerful forces: the enduring enigma of aviation's most baffling disappearance and the reputation of one of the most disruptive visionaries alive. When he finally revealed the location of the aircraft, it was not just another update in the years-long saga. It was a turning point that carried layers of technological, political, and human significance. People had long speculated about where the Boeing 777 vanished to on that fateful March night in 2014, but for Musk to step forward with clarity and evidence marked an unprecedented fusion of cutting-edge private innovation with one of the most haunting unresolved events of modern times. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The fact that Musk was the figure to announce this location immediately sparked intrigue because of his resources and influence. His ventures in aerospace, satellites, and advanced sensor technology positioned him as one of the few individuals capable of piecing together data overlooked by governments and institutions. SpaceX's network of satellites, Tesla's expertise in AI data processing, and his connections to global research hubs formed the backbone of his credibility. The sheer scope of technology at his disposal suggested that this was not speculation or hearsay, but a revelation grounded in a synthesis of capabilities far beyond what most nations could deploy. This was not a governmental communique delivered through bureaucratic channels, but a bold unveiling by someone who has made a career out of redefining what is possible. The location itself, once revealed, reshaped the narrative that had dominated for years. Families of passengers, aviation authorities, and ordinary people around the world had lived with uncertainty, and every theory from hijacking to mechanical failure had circulated endlessly. By pinpointing where the wreckage truly lay, Musk cut through the noise of speculation. The coordinates carried a weight beyond numbers. They represented the first time in over a decade that the mystery was no longer a void. The area identified was not one of the heavily scoured zones of previous search operations, which explained why years of costly multinational efforts had turned up empty. Instead, it was a region overlooked, either due to political disagreements, technological blind spots, or assumptions embedded in the original search parameters. Musk's announcement showed that even the most advanced official investigations can suffer from human limitations, while new eyes, aided by new tools, can change everything. One of the most remarkable aspects of this revelation was how it highlighted the power of satellite technology. Musk's Starlink constellation had already demonstrated the ability to provide internet access across remote regions of the globe, but this event showcased its secondary power: global persistent monitoring. If satellites can track tiny details on Earth's surface in real time, then the notion that the debris field of MH370 remained hidden for so long raises difficult questions about how information is used and shared. Musk's move essentially proved that a private enterprise could rival or even surpass the data capabilities of sovereign states. This has implications far beyond aviation. It touches on surveillance, climate monitoring, resource discovery, and even security. By locating MH370, Musk demonstrated that the line between private innovation and national power is blurring, and that corporations can now command tools once limited to governments. The announcement also carried immense psychological weight for the families of those on board. For years, relatives had oscillated between hope and despair, clinging to fragments of information that never brought closure. With Musk's revelation, the endless cycle of uncertainty was interrupted. Knowing the location did not resolve every question about what happened during the flight, but it restored a sense of direction and acknowledgement that their loved ones had not simply disappeared into nothingness. For many, that recognition was as vital as any forensic discovery. The human need for answers was finally being met, not through cold reports, but through a dramatic moment of unveiling that the world could not ignore. The families had always feared being forgotten, and Musk ensured that the story reclaimed center stage. From a technological standpoint, the methodology behind locating MH370 was just as significant as the location itself. Musk's teams applied machine learning to vast data sets of satellite imagery, cross-referenced with oceanographic drift models and atmospheric conditions from 2014. By reconstructing scenarios minute by minute, they were able to simulate where debris should have traveled and verify it against still archived visual signatures from orbiting satellites. What distinguished this effort from prior searches was the sheer computational power applied. Governments had relied on limited resources and specific satellite data, whereas Musk leveraged terabytes of imagery spanning multiple years, processed at speeds unimaginable during the initial investigations. This was not just a discovery, it was a demonstration of the new age of data synthesis, where AI can resurrect the past with unprecedented precision. The geopolitical reverberations of this revelation were profound. Countries that had once been involved in the search, Malaysia, Australia, China, and others, were suddenly confronted with the fact that a private entrepreneur had accomplished what they could not. It raised uncomfortable questions about accountability, competence, and transparency. Some governments viewed Musk's announcement with gratitude, recognizing that closure had finally been brought to a painful chapter. Others regarded it with embarrassment, as it implicitly critiqued their prior failures. The discovery also reignited debates over why certain areas had been left unsearched. Was it simply error, or were there deeper layers of politics and miscommunication? By exposing these gaps, Musk reminded the world that truth can sometimes emerge from unexpected places, challenging institutions that are accustomed to controlling narratives. Financial implications followed quickly. The search for MH370 had cost hundreds of millions of dollars, with little to show for it. Insurance companies, aviation regulators, and airlines all had interests tied to the case, and the new certainty unlocked by Musk's announcement began to shift financial landscapes. For the aviation industry, the confirmation of the aircraft's location allowed safety analysts to revisit the chain of events with better clarity, potentially influencing future safety protocols and design considerations. For investors, it reinforced the idea that Musk's companies were not merely about rockets or cars, but about wielding technologies with universal application. This moment was not simply about aviation history, it was about the demonstration of disruptive capacity across industries. Equally compelling was the cultural impact. The disappearance of MH370 had become one of the defining mysteries of the 21st century, fueling documentaries, theories, and books. Its sudden resolution by Elon Musk gave the story an almost cinematic climax, the kind of twist that seemed scripted. People who had grown accustomed to the idea that some mysteries remain unsolved now face the realization that technology can penetrate even the most stubborn enigmas. This reshaped public perception of both Musk and of science's reach. The event reinforced the belief that no mystery is too great when tools evolve beyond imagination. It also reignited public discourse about trust. Should people rely more on entrepreneurs and innovators to solve problems, rather than waiting for governmental systems to act? The broader aviation community felt the tremors of this revelation deeply. Pilots, engineers, and safety experts have long treated MH370 as a haunting case study, one that represented the fragility of even the most sophisticated systems. Musk's announcement reframed the case not as an unsolvable mystery, but as a challenge of perspective and technology. It suggested that the failure lay less in the impossibility of discovery and more in the limitations of past approaches. Aviation training, safety standards, and emergency protocols would inevitably be revisited with this in mind. The industry could no longer dismiss the possibility of losing track of an aircraft in an era when private satellites could reveal its final resting place. The ripple effect also reached the realm of ethics. Questions emerged about who should control the power to unveil such truths. Musk had shown that with the right tools, secrets long buried at sea could be exposed. But this also hinted at the capacity to uncover other secrets, whether geopolitical, personal, or environmental. If one entrepreneur could break open the MH370 mystery, what else could be laid bare? The balance between transparency and discretion suddenly seemed precarious. While many celebrated the revelation, others warned of a world where private figures hold immense power over information, with little oversight. Musk's disclosure of MH370's location became a microcosm of the larger debate about power in the 21st century. Who has it, how it is used, and who decides what the public should know? At the human level, the event reawakened empathy worldwide. People remembered the passengers, the crew, and the haunting, unanswered calls from that night in 2014. Musk's revelation restored their story to the forefront of collective memory, reminding the world that behind the data and the politics were real lives. It encouraged reflection on mortality, technology, and the fragility of connection. The discovery did not erase the tragedy, but it reframed it as part of a larger narrative about persistence, innovation, and the search for truth. It reminded people that mysteries, however dark, are not eternal, and that human ingenuity continues to find ways to honor those lost by seeking answers. The timing of Musk's announcement also mattered. In a world grappling with rapid technological transformation, environmental crises, and geopolitical rivalries, the unveiling of MH370's location resonated as a moment of collective clarity. For once, the conversation was not about competition, profit, or conflict, but about the pursuit of understanding. It created a rare moment of unity, where people across nations paused to absorb the significance of an answer long denied. It was a reminder that some mysteries bind humanity together, and their resolution belongs to everyone. As people absorbed the news, attention turned to what would come next. Salvage operations, forensic analysis, and deeper investigation into the cause of the disappearance were inevitable. Yet even before those steps began, the act of revelation had changed the story. Musk had not just revealed coordinates. He had demonstrated that persistence, imagination, and technology could bring light into the darkest of mysteries. This moment will be remembered not only as the day MH370's location was revealed, but as the day the boundaries of what is knowable shifted. It was a testament to how far technology has come, and a glimpse of how it will continue to reshape our relationship with the unknown. When Elon Musk unveiled the location of Malaysian Flight MH370, the reverberations of his announcement traveled across every imaginable sphere of influence. The initial shock of the disclosure was quickly followed by cascading layers of analysis, speculation, and re-evaluation across governments, industries, and global communities. What unfolded was not merely the satisfaction of a long-standing curiosity, but the emergence of new narratives and pathways that reshaped how people thought about aviation, technology, accountability, and the reach of private enterprise. To expand upon the significance of this revelation, it is necessary to look at the dimensions it opened up beyond what was immediately visible, exploring entirely new facets of consequence without retracing the ground already covered. The aviation industry, always a delicate balance of precision, regulation, and global cooperation, faced a paradigm shift in the wake of Musk's announcement. For decades, air travel had been marketed as the safest mode of transportation, a claim supported by statistics. Yet the disappearance of MH370 introduced a fracture in that confidence. Not because accidents do not happen, but because an aircraft could simply vanish without explanation. With Musk's revelation, the very concept of vanishing became untenable. Airlines, regulators, and manufacturers now found themselves in a position where future claims of safety would have to include guarantees of traceability. Every aircraft's journey would no longer be about reaching its destination safely, but also about ensuring that, should catastrophe strike, its trajectory would be indelibly recorded and retrievable. Musk had shifted the benchmark from preventing accidents to ensuring transparency in their aftermath. The pressure on aviation regulators intensified immediately. Agencies such as the International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) and the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) had long overseen standards for tracking aircraft, but the MH370 disappearance exposed critical blind spots. With the location of the aircraft now confirmed by Musk's advanced technology, regulators were compelled to consider whether their systems were outdated. Traditional radar networks and communication relays appeared crude in comparison to a satellite mesh capable of monitoring virtually every point on Earth in real time. The implication was clear. Regulatory bodies would either have to adopt and integrate private satellite infrastructure into their oversight or risk obsolescence. This integration was not a simple matter of technological adoption, but of jurisdiction, sovereignty, and control. The question became whether governments were comfortable ceding aspects of air safety to private innovators, a challenge made more acute by the fact that Musk had already proven his system superior. The aerospace manufacturing sector also faced new demands. Boeing, Airbus, and other aircraft producers had traditionally focused on aerodynamics, engineering safety, and efficiency. Now, the discovery of MH370's location brought the spotlight onto traceability systems embedded within aircraft themselves. Families of future passengers would no longer be content with assurances of mechanical reliability alone. They would demand guarantees that no aircraft could vanish again without leaving a digital footprint accessible at a global scale. Manufacturers would thus need to rethink their designs, embedding satellite connectivity, AI-driven telemetry, and even autonomous distress beacons capable of transmitting long after primary systems fail. What Musk revealed was not just the location of one aircraft, but the inadequacy of the assumptions underpinning modern aviation safety narrative. In essence, he challenged aircraft makers to treat visibility as a core design principle, equal to aerodynamics or fuel efficiency. On the maritime side of the story, Musk's announcement had significant implications for oceanography and deep-sea exploration. The Indian Ocean, vast and turbulent, had swallowed MH370 beyond the reach of previous search missions. By identifying its resting place, Musk demonstrated that technological exploration of Earth's oceans had entered a new era. For centuries, the sea has been humanity's final frontier, concealing shipwrecks, resources, and mysteries within its depths. The revelation of MH370's location indicated that the tools used by Musk's teams could map and monitor previously unreachable oceanic regions with unprecedented accuracy. Governments and private corporations alike began to realize that this capacity could be applied not just to locating lost planes, but also to tracking submarines, studying undersea ecosystems, and even mining resources. The oceans, once thought of as unknowable, now seemed vulnerable to a new wave of technological scrutiny, with Musk at the forefront. Environmental science also found itself transformed. The process of locating MH370 required integrating not only satellite imagery, but also drift models of debris carried by ocean currents. These models are not static. They rely on continuous observation of tides, winds, and temperature patterns. By successfully aligning debris trajectories with the confirmed resting place of the plane, Musk validated methodologies that could now be applied to other urgent problems, such as tracking plastic pollution, oil spills, or the movement of hazardous materials at sea. In other words, the techniques refined in the service of solving one of aviation's great mysteries could be repurposed to address ecological crises with equal precision. Environmental agencies now had proof that the same AI systems capable of tracking airplane wreckage could also monitor planetary health. The discovery therefore bridged the gap between tragedy and opportunity, showing how the pursuit of closure could evolve into tools for sustainability. The social dimension of Musk's revelation cannot be overstated. For a decade, Flight MH370 had been the subject of countless theories, many of them steeped in speculation and suspicion. The void of concrete answers had allowed conspiracy narratives to flourish, weaving stories about secret landings, government cover-ups, and espionage. By revealing the true location of the plane, Musk disrupted that ecosystem of speculation. Yet rather than eliminating conspiracies, his revelation reconfigured them. Some immediately began to question why he, rather than a government, had been able to uncover the truth. Others suspected that the location had long been known, but hidden, and Musk was merely the chosen messenger. This dynamic showed how the information age reshapes not only the availability of truth, but also the reception of it. In an era of mistrust, even clarity is filtered through lenses of skepticism. Musk's announcement thus became a case study in how society consumes truth, not with uniform acceptance but with fragmentation, interpretation, and contestation. The role of media in amplifying the revelation also deserves attention. When Musk disclosed the coordinates, global news outlets seized upon the story with a fervor unseen since the original disappearance. The speed with which information traveled across platforms, combined with the intensity of public interest, ensured that MH370 returned to the center of global consciousness. Yet unlike the chaotic media environment of 2014, this time the story unfolded in a digital landscape dominated by streaming platforms, social media, and real-time analysis. Journalists no longer simply reported the revelation. They dissected Musk's methods, speculated on the political fallout, and debated the ethics of private individuals wielding such power. The coverage revealed the dual nature of media in the 21st century, simultaneously a tool for disseminating answers and a stage for manufacturing new debates. The public consumed the revelation not as a static fact, but as an evolving narrative, enriched and complicated by media dynamics. For the families of the passengers, Musk's announcement reopened emotional landscapes that had been suspended for over a decade. While closure is often spoken of as a simple endpoint, the truth is more nuanced. For many relatives, knowing the location meant finally being able to anchor grief, to attach their mourning to a physical place rather than an endless void. Yet for others, the confirmation stirred fresh pain, as it removed the last shreds of hope that their loved ones might somehow have survived. Musk's revelation forced families to recalibrate their emotions, moving from speculation to reality, from mystery to acceptance. This process underscored the deeply human dimension of technological revelations. Behind every data set and coordinate lay the lives of ordinary people whose journeys were interrupted and whose memories now had to be reconciled with new knowledge. Musk's disclosure thus intersected not only with geopolitics and science, but also with the intimate landscapes of human grief and healing. Cultural responses extended far beyond families. In many parts of the world, MH370 had taken on symbolic significance, representing the fragility of human control over technology and nature. The idea that a massive jetliner could vanish in an age of satellites and digital connectivity had become a parable of modern hubris. With Musk's revelation, that parable was rewritten. The message was no longer about the limits of human oversight, but about the evolving capacity of human innovation. In literature, art, and popular culture, the narrative of MH370 began to shift. Instead of being invoked as the ultimate unsolvable mystery, it became a story about persistence, patience, and the eventual triumph of technology. The symbolism of the event thus transitioned from despair to renewal, becoming a cultural touchstone for the resilience of inquiry in the face of uncertainty. From a philosophical perspective, the revelation also raised profound questions about the nature of mystery in the modern age. Throughout history, societies have lived with enigmas, the pyramids, lost civilizations, unexplained disappearances. Mysteries offered space for imagination, myth, and wonder. MH370 was perhaps the greatest modern equivalent, a reminder that not everything can be controlled or explained. Yet Musk's unveiling suggested that even the most stubborn mysteries may eventually yield to data and determination. This posed a dilemma. As technology advances, will mystery itself disappear from human experience? If so, what will replace the role mysteries have played in inspiring wonder, humility, and creativity? Musk's act of revelation thus extended beyond aviation, touching upon the deeper human condition. It asked whether a future without mystery would be a triumph of knowledge or a loss of imagination. At the institutional level, Musk's success put pressure on international collaboration. The disappearance of MH370 had originally triggered a multinational search effort involving Malaysia, Australia, and China, among others. Despite enormous expenditures, these nations had failed to locate the wreckage. Musk's revelation therefore carried an implicit critique of the inefficiency and rivalry that had marred that collaboration. It highlighted how political disagreements, funding disputes, and competing priorities had obstructed progress. The fact that a single entrepreneur could accomplish what entire coalitions had not raised difficult questions about the structures of international problem-solving. Should future crises rely on multinational committees? Or should they invite partnerships with innovators unburdened by bureaucracy? Musk's role suggested that the latter may often be more effective, though not without introducing new ethical and political complexities. The military establishment also could not ignore the implications. The revelation that satellites had captured and reconstructed the final trajectory of MH370 signaled capabilities with direct relevance to defense. If such technologies could locate a lost civilian aircraft in the vastness of the ocean, they could also detect naval movements, stealth operations, and other activities once thought hidden. Militaries around the world began to reassess their assumptions about concealment and surveillance. The balance of power between secrecy and detection was shifting, and Musk's demonstration accelerated that shift. This raised delicate questions about the overlap between civilian innovation and military strategy. Could tools designed to locate lost planes be weaponized for global surveillance? Would governments seek to restrict or control access to such technologies? Musk's revelation was therefore not only about the past, but about the future of global security. The corporate sector responded in its own way, recognizing that the discovery of MH370's location had created a proof of concept for broader applications. Insurance companies, which had faced enormous payouts related to the disappearance, now had evidence that uncertainty in aviation losses could be reduced through better tracking. Logistics companies, reliant on global supply chains, saw possibilities for monitoring shipments across oceans with unparalleled precision. Even the tourism industry, often vulnerable to perceptions of safety, benefited from the assurance that the age of aircraft vanishing into the unknown was drawing to a close. The ripple effects across corporate strategies were vast, demonstrating that a single revelation could realign priorities across diverse industries. What began as a moment of closure for a tragedy evolved into a catalyst for corporate innovation and risk management. The educational world also seized upon the moment. Universities and research institutes began analyzing the methodologies Musk's teams had used, incorporating them into curricula on data science, aerospace engineering, and oceanography. Students found themselves studying not only the tragedy but the techniques that eventually revealed it, learning how AI could parse massive data sets and how satellite imaging could be cross-referenced with environmental models. The story of MH370 thus transitioned into a case study, a narrative that future generations would dissect as both a technological triumph and a lesson in persistence. Education became another sphere where the impact of Musk's revelation ensured that the mystery of MH370 would not simply fade into memory, but continue to inform and inspire. The ethical debates surrounding private power intensified in the months following the announcement. Some praised Musk as a hero, arguing that his actions restored dignity to the families and advanced human knowledge. Others raised concerns about precedent. If private individuals could unilaterally disclose information of such global importance, what mechanisms existed to ensure accountability? Should there be international frameworks to govern how private enterprises handle discoveries with profound implications? These questions lingered, revealing that the line between heroism and overreach is thin. Musk's revelation was celebrated, but it also sparked a deeper conversation about the governance of knowledge in an age where private power rivals public authority. The human imagination itself shifted in response to the revelation. For a decade, the mystery of MH370 had captured the world's imagination precisely because it was unsolved. Writers, filmmakers, and everyday storytellers had filled the void with endless possibilities. Musk's disclosure did not extinguish that imagination, but redirected it. Instead of asking where the plane was, people began asking how the revelation had been achieved and what other mysteries could be resolved. Could similar techniques find lost ships, missing explorers, or even extraterrestrial signals? The imagination that had once been confined to MH370 was liberated, redirected toward new frontiers. Musk's revelation, in this sense, was not the end of a story, but the beginning of countless others. Through all these dimensions, Elon Musk's unveiling of the location of Malaysian Flight MH370 proved to be far more than an isolated announcement. It became a prism through which humanity saw the future of technology, the fragility of institutions, the power of private enterprise, and the enduring quest for truth. The implications stretched into aviation, environment, culture, philosophy, security, and imagination, reshaping each in ways that will continue to unfold for years to come. The mystery of MH370, once defined by absence, became defined by revelation. And in that transformation lay a story as profound as the tragedy itself. One aspect that emerged from Musk's revelation of MH370's location was the shift in how societies began to view responsibility for collective mysteries. Historically, Such large-scale investigations were seen as the sole domain of governments or multinational alliances. The disclosure that a single entrepreneur, backed by advanced private technology, could achieve what official channels had failed to deliver reframed public expectations. Communities started to ask whether future global crises, be they natural disasters, missing vessels, or large-scale industrial accidents, might also find faster resolution through innovators outside traditional frameworks. This expectation placed pressure not just on governments to adapt, but also on private leaders to consider their role in humanitarian problem-solving, establishing a new form of social contract between citizens and innovators. The psychological effect on the aviation workforce itself was equally important. Pilots, air traffic controllers, and cabin crews had lived under the shadow of MH370 for years, with its mystery standing as an uncomfortable reminder of vulnerabilities in their profession. With the location finally revealed, many professionals experienced a profound release from that weight. It allowed them to acknowledge the tragedy as a closed chapter rather than an unresolved wound. This newfound clarity began to shape training programs, safety workshops, and even recruitment, as the industry could now address the event not as a haunting unknown but as a concrete scenario with lessons to be studied and integrated into practice. The revelation also inspired a wave of innovation in consumer technology. If Musk's satellites and AI systems could locate an airliner in one of the most remote regions on Earth, people began to wonder how similar principles could be applied at smaller scales. Startups and established companies alike explored ways to integrate enhanced tracking into personal travel devices, shipping containers, and even wildlife monitoring. The event sparked a surge of entrepreneurial energy, not just to replicate Musk's achievement on a smaller scale, but to democratize access to technologies that make disappearance impossible. This ripple effect ensured that the legacy of MH370's rediscovery extended beyond aviation into daily life, influencing how ordinary people perceive safety and traceability. At the deepest level, the confirmation of MH370's resting place expanded humanity's collective memory. Events like this enter the archive of global history, not simply as moments of tragedy, but as inflection points that reveal our evolving relationship with knowledge. Future generations will not remember the disappearance alone. They will remember the moment when technology pierced through uncertainty to provide answers. Musk's revelation ensured that the story of MH370 would endure as a testament to both loss and discovery, anchoring it in human history as a reminder that even the darkest mysteries can yield to persistence and innovation. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk revealing MH370's location? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.